Hey everyone, this is Gary Kay, and look, we're here at EdTech Day, and this is going to be a great session. I'm excited to be joined with Mark Donovan, who's the Director of Commercial Applications for Audio Technica. And this technically, Mark, we titled this session "From Classrooms to Conference Rooms: Real-Time Audio That Works Anywhere." That's your expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our whole thing is kind of the cornerstone about what we do and our different products is making sure we have the flexibility to meet those verticals.
Yeah, and let's talk about the classroom, because the classroom is quite complicated. There is no such thing as one classroom. A conference room's a little easier, a meeting room's a little easier to deal with because we kind of have this vision and we kind of know what it's like, right? There's people sitting around a table, you're capturing audio. But when we're talking about a classroom, we're talking about ad hoc presenters in the sense that you of course have a professor, but then you have students asking questions. We want to capture both, and we also have students asking questions at the same time. We want to know what the difference is between the question we took and the question we didn't take yet, and we don't want that recording to get messed up or that person who's joining remotely to not hear what's going on. And then we have all the accessory noises in a classroom. I'll call them accessory noises. Everything from shuffling paper to eating food, because we have students sitting wherever they're sitting, and we don't have this sort of like captured round table environment. So when it comes to classrooms, it seems to me you're activating a lot more AI and a lot more technology to manage the audio. And talk a little bit about that and sort of what the magic is that Audio Technica has there.
Well, you certainly are. I mean, you're juggling a lot more. As you already said, there's that whole the flexibility. Not only do you have differences between school to school that might be doing different things in the classroom, but even instructor to instructors, so you'll have instructors that have different preferences, the way that they do things. So having the ability to, intelligently deal with that and deal with the space, that's part one. Part two, again, is that interaction between student and instructor because in that distant learning kind of application, you don't want that person on the far end to feel like they're truly isolated. I think one of the biggest problems I see is when you have a student who asks a very relevant question to what's going on, but the person on the other end can't hear that. And then that kind of loses things and that forces the instructor to say, okay, let me repeat the question and
which
things like
which is not normal. It's not
that. Right,
normal to have to
exactly.
repeat every question. Yeah.
It completely disrupts the flow of things. What we want to do is we want to have that natural flow. And certainly, where I'm going to go to first when I'm talking about that is something like our ceiling array. And I know sometimes that ceiling array technology, certainly some of the options that are out there can certainly have a high price tag to them, which makes it a little difficult in some cases. But there are a lot of cases like with Audio Technica. What we've done is we've said, let's look at the features that are important to the key markets, and education being one of our key markets for this, and not put all these things in there that they don't need. And actually, one of the things we want to do is kind of demonstrate here, and I'll do that is because in a classroom, you've got a very mobile situation, whether you're talking about students asking questions, or for me, for example, when I'm teaching a class, I'm not standing in one place.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be difficult to wire somebody up, but I can stand here and I can walk around. I know I'm walking out of shot here for a
That's all
second,
right.
but I'm actually, let me redo that because I didn't put my preset on here properly. Gotta
So
love
let,
that.
let me ask you why you're doing that. You obviously have the ability to have multiple mics in the ceiling, right? You don't just
Right.
have you don't have the ability to just put one mic, because if you have a large lecture hall, when you're doing that, does it automatically calibrate itself knowing that there's multiple mics in the ceiling, or how hard is that to deal with?
So it's really not hard to deal with at all. What you're doing is you're telling the microphone, you're basically saying, okay, hey, you want your beams to only worry about this specific area of the room. So each of these microphones, whether you've got one microphone or four microphones or eight microphones, whatever, they're dealing with just their segment of the room. So they're not worried about somebody talking in that far corner. They're only worried about somebody talking in their little assigned zone, as it were.
Okay, and so do you wanna walk around the room and
Yeah,
let us hear that?
I can
Because
do that. I
what
can
are
do
you
that.
using in the room? Like, what are we listening to you on now?
So right now, what I've just got an rAVe camera in here, an rAVe Cam 550. This is our lab here, and I've got right in the center of the room, up in that open ceiling, is our Audio-Technica ATND 1061 beamforming ceiling array. And what this is able to do is able to track over a fairly large area. So as I back up towards this corner, I'm standing in this corner. I'm about 16 feet away from it. It's got about a 16-foot coverage on this one microphone. But what's nice about it, and this is something that somebody can appreciate on the far end, is even as I'm walking around right now, as I'm walking towards that microphone, I'm getting closer and closer. It's actually able to maintain that consistent level as I walk around and here. And now I'm going to go walk even further away back to the other corner. So that way, the person on the other end doesn't feel distracted by somebody going in and out of a coverage or somebody, being louder and then softer. And what's also nice about this is this requires no manipulation from the instructor, right? Instructors got a lot of things to do. They've got their class to worry about. They've got their material to worry about, and some of these guys, you don't want to load them down with technology that is not their expertise. So by having something like this, they don't even have to worry about
How big of a
it.
room can you handle with this? And, like, when do you put in a second mic, and how
So
many can you put?
so it's very much a radius. So what you're looking at here is a 16-foot radius on each microphone.
Okay.
So, and that's pretty typical with beamforming microphones to have that 5-meter radius that it's able to pick up, that 32-foot circle. So it's actually a pretty good size. This room right here is 18 and a half feet from the camera to the back wall here and 28 and a half feet wide end to end. And one mic picks that up fine. And
Okay.
after that, though, getting multiple mics and linking them together to act as a distributed system is a very simple process.
Okay, so it is possible, and it is simple. That's the key.
Simple is the key, yeah.
Okay. All right. So then let's talk about other options. Sometimes you want to have a lavalier mic on because you're also going to do lecture capture and you're going to use that for other applications. Do you have the ability to have both on at the same time? How does that work?
You do have to watch out. That is one of the tricks that you have to be cautious about because in the world of microphones, we talk often about a 3-to-1 rule, which is your distance between yourself and any other microphone. And the problem is not a problem. The design of a ceiling array microphone is it's designed to pick up at that distance. So you have that distance always also equals time, the time it takes for my voice to get from me to that microphone.
Right.
And the time it takes for my voice to get from here to this microphone, to this wireless microphone, is much shorter. So you'll end up with a delay. You'll end up with a little bit of an almost sounding like an echo because of the time difference. But the nice thing about that is in the ceiling array, I can actually say, you know what? I'm going to put what we call an exclusion area over the podium or over the front of the classroom where the instructor walks back and forth. That way, the microphone, the ceiling microphone, is not going to try to pick that person up. It's not going to activate on that person because they know, hey, that podium has a microphone, or that instructor who's walking back and forth has, a lapel microphone. So you can certainly adjust for those things. And that's something that the integrator would do. It's not something that the end user would have to, start worrying about the technology and distances and math.
What's the difference in that and voice lift?
So voice lift is like, I'm glad you bring that up because voice lift is an interesting topic. We get that question a lot. And part of it is understanding what exactly voice lift is. Now, what voice lift is really the intent to get the voice lifted only what is necessary to a part of the room that has a difficult time hearing it. Sometimes
Okay.
people confuse that with a PA system and say, I want to amplify the audio, but that's not exactly what you're doing. You're only trying to make it so those people in the far corner of the room are able to hear that voice clearly. If you're looking for a situation, for example, where they're like, well, we've got people, who have difficulty hearing, Well, there are different systems for that.
Right.
That's assisted listening systems, and they
Yeah.
work very well for that. But a voice lift system is to make it so that everybody in the classroom or everybody in the boardroom actually can hear as though they are right up there with the individual talking to them. And voice lift can be dealt with even with these automatic ceiling microphones. Ours actually has a voice lift circuit that you can engage
Okay.
so that you can make sure you get audio to where it needs to be.
And you don't have that feedback or
No. I
okay.
mean, if you've got, so people that might be listening who have a background in live sound, they're not going to have too much of a difficult time with that because they're used to trying to get feedback out of a system. They're used to ringing out monitors and doing all that kind of thing, but in the boardroom and the classroom, it's a little bit of a different animal.
Yeah.
And what we've done and what a lot of other manufacturers have done, but certainly us, we put in there a circuit inside of this microphone to do a lot of that automatically, it detects feedback automatically and cuts it out before it becomes noticeable. And it does all this automatic engagement of that to prevent exactly that kind of problem from happening.
Okay. All right. And then when we're going to I mean, it seems to me that when we do a meeting room or a conference room, this becomes a lot easier because we have generally a smaller space. But what I'm interested in is as the market has evolved into sort of like spotlighting people as they're speaking, right? Where the cameras, like you were showing, the camera's following you around. But we also have these systems where the camera is literally slicing up the room and giving everyone a separate view from a far side participant. How is that affecting the design of microphones and systems?
I mean, it's made a huge difference, and so that integration, has been a key part of what we're doing with all this. What you just saw with me when I walked to the corners of the room and the camera followed me is actually the kind of the most simplified version of it. Actually, for us, it's actually Visco over IP. That microphone is actually communicating directly to that camera with no other hardware.
Okay.
But we also provide information out onto the network of where a talker is located, in basically rotation angle and elevation angle. So when you go into something like QSYS with their camera preset recall or any of those kind of third-party systems, we're providing them that spatial data of where the voice is coming from. And so they can assign one or more or specific cameras. You can get, actually, some of them are very, very complicated where they can do masking shots where they're doing, it'll come to a wide view of me while I'm talking while another camera zooms over and zooms
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
All this is automatic. And really what we're doing is making sure that we can provide the most accurate raw positional data possible for those systems.
And you're doing that kind of two different ways, right? You're doing it by listening to where the presenter is or person talking is, but you also have the ability to use the data from the cameras too, don't you?
You do, and that's, what some of these more involved systems that are just now starting to come out, what you start looking at is what I call correlation, is data correlation, where you can take the audio data and you can take what it's seeing on the camera, the video data, to help minimize errors. Because really, especially we saw this a lot in the beginning of automatic camera tracking. I mean, we've all seen it. We've all sat down and watched the camera go somewhere off on its own in the
Yeah.
distance. It thought there was somebody in the wrong place. But as we get more accurate camera systems, as we get more accurate microphone data, you can actually correlate that so you can get some really accurate and fewer false triggers and things like that.
All right. So to find out more information, where do we go?
So coming to our website is really the way to do it. It's the easiest way, which is, of course, www.audio-technica.com. That's really, come to that and go to the commercial audio section and you can see all that. And of course you can contact, and I always like to put this out here, our applications engineering team, because we're there to help, do the heavy lifting at the AE team at atus.com, the applications engineering team.
Perfect. All right. Well, look, thank you very much for doing this live demo. It's a real-time demo we did here. No tricks. You're literally listening to Mark walk around the room and demonstrate it for us. I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us on Ed Tech Day here at Launch Week 12. Steph, back to you.